So, what's interesting is, you have all these people. I have some friends that were pretty high up in some, let's just say, mafia associations, who told me that when the blue bloods of Europe, they got tired of ruling over people with a rod of iron, and you had all these peasants out on the farms in England, and you had the system, and it wasn't very productive. People would go out, they would work their farms, and they'd make make so many bales of hay and whatever other crops they were doing, but it got to a point where these blue bloods that were ruling the planet wanted to get more production out of people. And they understood the principle that if people thought that they were free and everything that they worked for they got to keep, then, or maybe a very small donation for the community to help the community, they would start a new country. And that's my understanding from them was the Queen took all these people and sent them to the United States, and they set up this, what I would call a false front. Now, Mike, I know you take it very serious, but to me, the whole thing was a facade. That the Revolutionary War that set up the freedom in America was part of this blue blood plan to set up a country where the people thought that they were free, but they're really not free. And as Val mentioned, it's they pretend that we're free, but they do have a lot of control over us. Even if it's not control over our physical bodies, at least they're keeping us in endless cycles of reincarnation through the religious teachings, like the Christian Church. So whether it's physical control or whatever, we don't have the freedom to escape this line of reincarnations. We'll never be free until we get out of these reincarnations. And so that's the bottom line of this whole thing. And fortunately, we've discovered that there's a group of real guides here that will guide us out of this false creation and allow us to learn what the real truth is, so we can step out of creation and go to the heavens that we really think that we're going to. So anyway, I know we're running out of time, Val, so I just wanted to throw that out there, and maybe we can discuss that some more the next time we have a show.
Well, we have 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, we still have time?
Go a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, when a lot of these people that the English government sent over, they retain their title of Esquire. Well, for anybody that doesn't know what Esquire means that they are sworn to serve the Queen, the British government. That's what Esquire means, and that's why a lot of attorneys, they put Esquire at the end of their name, because they realize that they are still serving the Queen. And so, notwithstanding what Mike said, Mike says that there's a group of people that set up a constitution that will set the people apart, and it sure looks like it. But I personally am not really convinced that the British government actually relinquished anything. I've actually, just in the last 20 or 30 years, I have talked to judges that have been sent to judge school. There's judge schools in the United States. Whenever somebody gets elected to be judge, they send them off to a school where they get trained how to be a judge. And these judges have told me, they said the first thing they tell you is when you're in the courtroom and you're ruling over the people in the courtroom, remember one thing: the only law in this country is what you say it is. And be sure that you don't do anything that will make the people in the courtroom think that we're not operating under the Constitution. So they're between a rock and a hard place. They can do whatever they want, but they have to go through the facade of not doing something stupid enough to where people might catch on that we really are not operating under the Constitution. And that's, I'll tell you, I've talked to several judges that have told me that have gone through judge school. And I when I was studying this one Christian religion where I no longer do that, but I went through this one phase in my life where I studied the Babylonian law, and the system of judges that we have today is no different than the Babylonian law from when the Israelites were in captivity to the Babylonians. And as an example, the reason why when you go in a courtroom the judges put on their black garb is because they are high priests of that Babylonian religion. And the bench that they sit behind is really an altar. It's a Babylonian altar, the same kind of altar they used in ancient Babylon to sacrifice human beings and to sacrifice animals. And so a judge in a courtroom is actually sacrificing people across his bench or his altar. That's what's going on in a courtroom. You know, a lot of people may think it's common law or whatever kind of law it is, but it's really a religion. You're being sacrificed for the cause of the reptilians. That's what's going on. And contempt of court, all these things, you know, if a judge doesn't like what you're doing, they hold you in contempt of court. And I don't know if anybody knows about contempt of court, but a contempt of court, a judge can do whatever they want. The law is suspended while you're under contempt of a judge. And I had 5 months in the Champaign County Jail, and one of the adjacent county jails had 5 months to dwell on that idea because I was held in contempt of court for not paying child support. And after being in for 5 months, I had some friends that bailed me out, were able to get me out. And after I was out, I called up the judge of the not Champaign County, but the judge in charge, the top judge of the adjacent county where I was in the county jail. And I talked to him on the phone. I said, "How can you do this?" You know, and he explained, well, he says, "You have to understand one thing. We're not operating under the Constitution. We can nullify the law anytime, anyhow we want, whenever we want. And we can use contempt of law or contempt, and we can suspend somebody until they die of old age. That's not a factor. We have total control of what we want to do with people." And the judge told me that, and I said, well, and then right in the middle, after he said all that, then he stopped midstream and he said, "Well, who am I talking to?" And I said, "Well, my name's, you know, Robert, and I just spent 5 months in the jail because of child support." And the guy slammed the phone down. He didn't realize he was talking to one of his victims. He thought he was talking to another judge from one of the other counties. So, I mean, I have had personal experience with that. Another judge I met, I was flight instructing at a small airport in northern Illinois, and one day this judge flies in his own airplane, and I had a nice little chat with him, and I said, "Well, you know, nice airplane that you own there." He said, "What, you know?" And I said, "What do you do?" And he says, I'm a circuit court judge, you know, out of Chicago in the district court." And I said, "Well, you know, what's your plan?" And he says, "Well, I'm in the process of retiring. I'm going to retire out west. I'm going to go out to Colorado, and I'm going to do some fishing, and then I'm just going to, you know, just be a part-time judge out there." And I said, "Well, how come you're moving out west?" And he says, "Because they want to kill me. You know, he says, I'm afraid they're going to, if I spend one more month in the district court in Chicago, they're going to murder me because I'm trying to rule and give people their constitutional rights, and they don't want that." So he had to quit being a judge in Chicago because they were ready to do him in. So anyway, that's some of my personal thoughts and experience with the legal system.
Are there any callers that would like to participate before we get back to Mike?
Yeah, well, I would like to say something in regards to the system and how it really works. And in spite of what all the judges have been led to believe, and all of the people have been led to believe, there are processes that will lead you, if you're ready, if you're willing to wake up, it'll lead you through the system that most people have found themselves completely and totally trapped in. It's a very simple system. It's not complicated, but it's something you might have to spend a little time to learn. Find out is that that system that supposedly doesn't recognize anything that the system was created to do, when you bring the right document and the right issue, they immediately stop what they're doing. And I say this specific because these are the things I have been involved in. These are the things I have done. I've actually gone through these doors. I know what happens when you punch the right button. But you got to look for the right button. Or if you don't know what it is, that's when the question comes up. Well, guys, what's next? What do I do here? And as I went through these doors, the doors opened. The information came, and the issues got resolved. And I didn't have to do any of this crap. I didn't have to go to jail. I didn't have to lose all the things in my life. Paid up a lot of stuff during my process. They call that karmic payback. You may not realize how deep you go and how far back in your lives of things that you've done that you're now coming to the point where you got to settle up with. Well, that's part of the process. You're either going to understand and agree with that, or you're just going to keep beating your head against the wall trying to figure out why things are happening to you. But nevertheless, the issues of a system not recognizing who and what we are is not completely correct. It only operates according to who you think you are and the steps you take. If you don't know who and what you are, they're going to look at you exactly the way you perceive yourself. And you're a tax-paying U.S. citizen subject under their jurisdiction and their zip codes and the whole morass of things that they created legislatively to entrap you. Regardless of how the system was set up or who did it or what their intent was, from whence I came. And I know there are other people who have been through those doors as well. And we do have an opportunity here, regardless of the things that the blue bloods, and by the way, that blue blood thing, that's because they live on and drink silver and silver water, and they drink out of silver urns. That's what turns the blood blue. It's very powerful stuff, and all it's designed to do is to neutralize bacteria and other elements in your system, which is why the Catholic Church uses it for all their holy water. All their urns are silver. But nevertheless, back to the other part, if you want you to learn who you are in the system, they will no longer look at you the same way they've been looking at you. But it's up to you. Each of us have the choice. We each have to make the decision and decide. And then we have the opportunity to either risk something, which is what happens in most cases. People will immediately say, oh my God, if I did that, this will happen. Or if I do that, and then they use examples of all those other people out there, all the patriots that have wound up in prison over all kinds of related issues, that if they knew who and what they were in the system, instead of complaining and doing all the garbage that the average person does, they wouldn't have done and gone through the things that they're in. And the judges, at some point, and it's coming, you're going to see it, those people that have been violating the principles, I'm not talking about the Constitution, I'm talking about the principles of sovereignty, of doing things to their fellow man that they should not have done because there's a consequence for that. They're all going to be paying the price. You know, how many times have each of us been here? You may have very well been through this whole system in some other whole scope of time, a billion years ago, whatever. There's reoccurrence. It's constant. Everybody's going over and over and over until you get it right. And the boys are sitting up there. They've already been through all this. They've done it. And they're just looking and waiting and watching and helping. And for those who are ready to take that big step, they'll reach right out there and hand you a pearl. New you, every chance you get.
Thanks, Mike. So we should be winding down here a little bit, the show. So let's have final statements, final shares from Bob and then Mike, and then I'll say something, and then we can see everybody next week. Bob?
Well, thank you, Val. Thank you, Mike. Well, it's always interesting to have the different opinions on things, and I know, what Mike is saying, there are laws on the books that give you the sovereign rights, exactly as Mike was saying. I would say that one of the problems that we have is, well, number one is too many people don't know exactly how the laws work, and they're afraid they're going to wind up in jail if they try it without not knowing what they're doing. And then the second problem that we have to face is the fact that the legal system, so many of the judges are unwilling to step out because if they step outside the norm of denying people their rights, they will be murdered if they honor somebody's constitutional rights. So you're dealing with some really nasty stuff there. So that's all I have to say for this session. And Val?
Thanks, Bob. Very good. And Mike?
It's wake-up time. All I can say, for those who are ready, the doors are there. All they got to do is start asking the guides to direct them. Because the information that's there, it's not hidden. It's in plain sight. And that's what the snakes, the lizards, and all those people, they don't want people to find it. They don't want people to know what it is, and they sure as heck don't want them to exercise. So this little window that we've come to with Dwayne's assistance and the boys, it's a limited window. And for those who are ready to step forward and actually stretch themselves and take a little risk in things that they've been led to believe are not true, then this is the time. I appreciate your response.
Well, thank you, everybody that's been listening.
Yeah, and this demonstrates how there's different viewpoints about how to so-called get or to have more awareness. As we all travel, or we all recognize this reality in our own way, and through our own creativity and cleverness, even. So, what we have here is the governments are basically brought out to control people through taking control of the monetary system, and then that controls the labor and so on and so on. So it's a tricky situation here to get through the government and all the restrictions. Again, we're not trying to take down the government. We're just giving people the opportunity to see that there is so much more. I mean, a whole lot more way of living, and then going even beyond the so-called one-dimensional living is about. So let me
Can I
end
make
here.
one more comment, Val?
Sure.
Most people are probably going to hear about this because it's something that Congress is in the process right now. There's actually been a bill introduced to eliminate the IRS. And this is not a pipe dream. Somebody's actually doing this. And of course, if somebody in the system is going to try and get rid of a problem that most people have and didn't know, then you might want to look back in history and see where this thing came from. You know, it took an act of Congress to create all this junk, and all of a sudden Congress is looking around saying, maybe we should get rid of this problem. And the reason's simple. When the rest of the people wake up to what it really is and what it's been doing, they've done to the people, there could be some real difficulties for those who are part of that. So that's all I wanted to say.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Claudia.
Yes, this is Claudia in Texas. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I learned a lot today about history that I didn't get a chance to pay attention to when I was in school. But, boy, you really made it easy for me to understand. And I thank you. I'm just a grandmother who's living life under Social Security and trying to stay out of trouble. But I learned a lot about history that I did not know. And I thank you for doing all this research and look forward to next week's show. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Claudia. Next week we'll talk about the Federal Reserve and the banking system and some of the other things that are going on. It should be very, very interesting.
That's
Wonderful.
for sure. That would be a good one.
Does anybody else have any last-minute comments?
Oh yes, I was on mute. Excuse me. We're going to be on February 3rd in 2 weeks, and we alternate with the New School Homeschool program, which is also on Blog Talk Radio. Well, it's a radio show. Okay, so thank you again, callers, and thank you again, Bob and Mike, for just sharing so much information and helping us become more aware. I'll end with something here from the Dwayne the Great Writer, which we referenced, and he's a real guide, and he's also very much interested in what's going on here and helping people become more aware. A real life is not about thinking and rationalizing, as it is about seeing and being. The literal part of the personal self has its place, as nothing is negated, but there is so much more to wake up to and recognize that cannot always be literalized into any mental category. While most people are being dumbed down on a daily basis, they are also looking for some kind of freedom for themselves. There is no freedom here, and there never will be. Only when you, the real you, wakes up to your real awareness and recognizes who you really are, will you begin to see what real freedom is. You must take the time and learn to see more than just your literalized conditioning to free yourself. If you wait too long, you will just become old and fossilized once more, and as you have in your own previous unconscious lives, and stay lost here again. And like Mike said earlier about just basically your intuition, first respond to what life is showing you, and then activate it by doing something, contribute something. And that's where you really get it. Once you understand and see the process that life is providing for you. And the part of this is the show here, and we're just giving you hints and references to help you along with becoming more aware. So again, I thank everybody for being on today, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.